Hi guys, in this tutorial I'm going to share with you how to create the Bantu knot technique. So our model Janelle's hair has been blow dried and smoothed out, ready for us to start putting in the Bantu knots styling that we're doing. I'm just going to quickly talk through the sectioning technique and also the placement of the hair. As you can see right now, her hair is naturally falling in a middle parting. She's not actually going to have a middle parting, so I'm going to go more for like a side parting, but I don't want the parting to be necessarily defined, but I'm just going to gently sweep the hair over to the right hand side in the position that I actually envision the style sitting when I do the taking out of the Bantu knots. Now when we create our Bantu knots, again, you don't want to create sharp defined lines in your sectioning, because we are going to be twisting this out. You don't want to spend so much time trying to blend in the lines that we've exposed from the sectioning technique that you would have done. So you want to purposely keep your sectioning not too clean and not too smooth either, but you don't want it to look too messy at the same time. Hope that kind of makes sense. So I'm just lightly combing this over to the side, okay? And what I'm going to do is I will be starting from the back and then working my way to the front. I just want to show you how the hair is positioned and is sitting in the front there. So I'm just going to turn her around so you can actually see the sectioning I'm going to do in the back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to halve the hair just across the head there, so that helps to divide some of the hair so we don't have too much hair falling towards the back there, so it makes it easier to work with. So I'm just going to roughly section this out in half and just pin this away. And then I'm going to start from the back, just around here. So the back section here, I might section that into two separate sections. Again, just making it easier for you in terms of how you're working. If you feel that you've got a lot of hair that you're working with, just section half of it, put it away, and then just start with the bottom half, starting from the back, working your way to the front. Now, when I hold this, it doesn't feel that much, so I'm just going to leave that as it is. With the size of the sections, with the fact that I'm styling this for a Bantu knot styling, where I'm actually going to undo the Bantu knots when they're set and dried, you don't have to do them very small. If you know that this is a style that someone is actually going to keep and they're going to wear the Bantu knots, I would recommend that you might want to do your styles maybe a small to a medium, or you can go for a large one depending on what kind of style you're doing. Maybe you're doing this for like an editorial look, you're doing this more for like a creative style, so you can give yourself room to play around with the sizes that you choose to do, and also with your sectioning technique. For a twist out styling, you want to create more of a brick setting technique so that your lines are easy to cover up when you do your taking out. If I was doing this style and she was going to keep this as a style and we're not taking out the Bantu knots, I might choose to do my sectioning pattern in more of a creative way. So I might go more for like a diamond sectioning technique. I might do some specific squares, or I might mix and match squares and triangular sectioning. You might even choose to do like a heart design with your sectioning. You can be as creative as you want with your sectioning if you're going to keep this in as a style. But if you know that you're doing this for a twist out, you just want to keep that more as a brick setting technique and more like a horseshoe technique for styling. So this is a cutting comb, and it's got a slight gap here which allows me to be able to go in and create more like a horseshoe sectioning technique. That is an option. If you didn't have that, you could use a styling comb similar to this one here, but it's a little bit more on the bigger side, so you might just end up getting in the way in terms of how you're working. So I will actually stick to using this one here. So starting from the back, with the size of the section, knowing that I'm doing this for a twister, I'm going to go in more on the larger side with my size for the Bantu knots that I'm actually going to be creating. I'm not going to go too crazy, so we're not going to do like 3 large Bantu knots on her head of hair, but we still want to have at least maybe anything between 10 to 15 would be a good amount to have, depending on the volume and the texture of the hair that you're working with as well. So Janelle's hair, before we blow dried it, her hair is a mixture of a 3C with a 4A. Okay, so she doesn't have a very tightly coiled hair texture. There is some coil texture in there, but it goes more from like a very loose slight curl, a combination of wave in there as well, and slight coiling in there. So she's got a mixture of things going on with her natural texture, but overall I would class it as a 3C with a combination of a 4A in the hair as well. So I'm just going to comb this through, and then I'll do my first section round the back here. Okay, so this is the size that I'm going for. Now, depending on how large you go with this, you want to be careful that the surface area of how flat the hair starts and the positioning is in a right position, because it can affect the style when you do your taking out. So I'll explain that when I actually start the process. So this is the size that I'm working with here. So what we're going to do is, when you do your twisting, you don't want the surface area here where it's flat to be too large, because this can then affect how the style is going to look when you do your taking out. Okay, and you naturally want the part of the twisting process to start more central, so it sits more in the middle instead of having it too low, because then you have this very flat surface and then your curl will start from somewhere down here. We want that curl to be more central, to start right from the middle there. So this is the size of amount of hair that we're working with here. And when you're doing your twisting for your Bantu knots, your product would be applied per section as you go. So you're not going to apply the cream all over. You're going to apply that in sections, and then you're going to go ahead and work that product through from the roots all the way to the ends, combing through the hair, making sure nothing is tangled, because you want this to be as smooth as possible. We're aiming to create more like a corkscrew curl. So when you're creating your Bantu knots for a twist out, your aim is you're trying to create corkscrew curls in afro hair that naturally wouldn't have that defined curl, or even some of your type 3 hair texture, that's your multi-textured hair, wouldn't naturally have that. So you want to make sure that everything is really, really smooth, so that when you do your taking out, you have a really nicely defined S shape working through there with the twist out when it's actually been taken out, with your Bantu knot, sorry, when it's taken out. So I mentioned we're using our twist and braid cream from Flora & Curl for part of the styling for the Bantu knots, and I will also be applying a small amount of the curl defining gel, which can also be used for curl defining, but it can also be used for your twist and braid out styling if that's what you're opting for. So I will be applying a small amount of this in the hair as well. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and apply our twisting and braid cream into the hair. So this is the Flora & Curl twisting cream that will be applied in the hair. I'm also applying a little bit of the gel as well throughout the hair in combination with the cream that I'm using. So you want to make sure that your product is applied right from the roots and all the way down to the end, so you're getting a little bit more closer there with your product application. And I'm going to comb the hair to make sure it's nice and smooth. Okay, so once you're ready with your process for doing the Bantu knots, we're going to be using the pre-twisting technique to create a coiling in the hair. There's 2 ways you could do this. The other option would be to do a single twist and then wrap this into a Bantu knot where you coil the hair around, but we're not going to go for that because we want this to be very, very smooth. So you're going to do the process of pre-twisting, and your pre-twisting has to be done again. You want to turn that clockwise when you're doing your pre-twisting. You notice that my finger positioning is kept very low, so you want to keep that low to the scalp. You want to focus that pre-twisting from the scalp. So I'm just going to gently start to pre-twist clockwise. The last thing you want to do is to use one finger and do this pre-twisting process this way. It's not going to work. Your pre-twisting starts from the roots. Using both your hands, you're going to pre-twist. So as I pre-twist, what I'm doing also is to gently glide my fingers down and smoothing the hair and then twisting it. So if I do this very slowly so you can see, so I pre-twist and I glide my finger down just to maintain a really nice defined finish on the hair there, okay? So you might want to do a combination of combing through in between the process. So I have pre-twisted this. When I press into this, it feels very, very tight. So you're pre-twisting. If it's not super tight here, when you press into it, when you do your finished Bantu knot, you might see that it sits a little bit loose because you haven't applied enough tension. So you need to really get that tension in there. You don't want to do it in a way that it's uncomfortable for the person who's there you're styling. So I pre-twist round about halfway. So I'm not going to pre-twist this all the way down to the ends, just keeping a little bit more halfway. Around the root here, it will start to tighten and naturally want to start to coil around there, okay? So what I do is I just press with my index finger. So I'm holding the hair on my left hand side. With my right hand, I'm just going to use my index finger and press down just center of the Bantu knot here, and then I'll coil that around, okay? So I'm just going to loosen that a little bit because I'm mindful that it might pull a little bit more tightly around the root area here. So I just loosen that just slightly. So I press that down and then I wrap this around. So when you start to coil this around, you want to keep this part of the hair quite low to the scalp. So you don't want to raise it up and pre-twist while it's raised up. It's naturally going to coil on top, but we want the coiling to happen underneath, okay? So that's why I keep this nice and low. So wrap this around and then I wrap this under. So you're coiling, your first coil will sit at the top. The second part that coils will coil under, not on top. So I keep this close to the scalp. So you notice my fingers are kept close to the head and it's not raised away from the head, okay? So I pre-twist again, keeping that nice and smooth. If you need to comb the hair to make sure that it's nice and smooth, then by all means stop and do that, okay? And then we'll coil underneath again. So you notice when I coil under, I hold my coil here so that it just keeps it secure and in position. And then I continue to pre-twist. Towards the ends there, it might feel a little bit dry, so I'm going to put more of my cream towards the ends of the hair and then just smooth that down. Okay, and then coil under. Continue the process. Again, pre-twisting first, keeping that tension, okay? Coil under. So as I get to the end here, so I've got a little bit of hair left, as you can see. It's very tempting to just take this hair and then just wrap it around. But when you do that, what's going to happen is when you do your twist out, it's going to have a fish hook effect on the ends of the hair because you didn't do your pre-twisting. So you want to maintain that. I pre-twist even to the very, very last parts of the ends of the hair there. So pre-twist and then we'll wrap that under. You pre-twist. And that last little bit of hair, we're just going to really tuck that in just underneath, making sure that it's really tucked in and it's not just sticking out, okay? If the hair is not, some of the hair might hold on its own without you having to use anything extra to hold it. But if you do this and you're worried that this could come undone, you can use small elastic band. This will be just literally applied just at the very last part of the hair that went in. You just wrap it around twice just to lightly hold that little part of the hair that we tucked in. And this is what you want to see when you do a Bantu knot. So it's nice and even and it's quite sleek. There isn't any bits of hair sticking out. Use your product to help you to make sure that you get a really nice finish on your Bantu knots when you do them. So I'm just going to demonstrate again with just one more Bantu knot for you guys so you can see that process again. Okay, so we've completed our Bantu knots. We're going to go ahead and place Janelle under the hood dryer. We're going to be placing it under the hood dryer for up to 60 minutes. Just make sure if you're placing someone under the hood dryer, you want at least a medium to a hot temperature. Just make sure it's comfortable enough for your client or for your model. And you want to place them for about an hour. After an hour, you're going to take them out. You're going to check if it's dry. If it's not dry, you're going to redo the twist again, and you're going to place them under for another extra 15 to 20 minutes. However long you feel that the hair needs is what you're going to go for. So we're going to place it under the hood dryer now. Okay, sit back for me.